So I need you to be honest with me here.
Yeah.
If you look at my background, is there anything that looks like dirty laundry or anything of the sorts? I know it's a weird question, but I'm going to explain why.
No, nothing. Why?
So last episode, someone said, name a more iconic duo than Majmoha and Dirty Laundry. It was like, okay, the guy's just being weird. Fine,
Yeah.
it happens. But then during KotD's final, there was like this pre-talk show or whatever that was involved in. And the first comment that I read, because it was, I was watching Memb stream. I had to watch Memb stream, and he has the chat open all the time. The first comment that I read, why is Majmoha showing his dirty laundry? I mean, maybe it's the same guy trying to gaslight me. It was like, what the hell is going on? But yeah, okay. I don't know. Maybe like the piano cover looks like dirty laundry. I have no clue, but it's not.
But it looks so much more like a piano, to be fair. Like you're really having to imagine something that's not there.
Yeah, it's probably the same guy. He's just trying to gaslight me. I'm pretty sure that's what's happening. All right, so good to clear that up. You good to go?
Ready to go.
Let's do it. All right, hello there, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Majmoha.
And I'm Hera.
And this is episode 40 of The Town Center, your podcast dedicated to all things Age of Empires. In today's show, the last S-tier tournament of 2025 is now in the books, and what a fantastic show it has been. We'll tell you all about Memb's King of the Desert 6 and all the potential implications of what we've seen during the tournament, and obviously, spoilers will follow. Then, we now have official confirmation of yet another DLC for Age of Empires 2 coming early next year, and since this is the last episode of the year, we'll take the time to look back and sort of assess 2025 with the help of a few stats that I've compiled for you guys. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, tell your friends about us, and if you prefer to listen to us on Spotify, don't forget to rate us 5 stars. All right, Hera, excited for this one. Listen, this is episode 40, round number, beautiful number. And I'm about to turn 40 in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Sad coincidence. Okay, be honest with me. Do I look like 40? You can tell there's a lot of insecurities coming. I needed to ask you about the laundry. Now I'm asking if I look like 40, but be honest. You can be honest with me.
Yeah, I think you look exactly your age, but that's a good thing. Like, you're not.
Is it? All right.
Yeah, you're good for your age. That's how it is.
Okay. I'll take that. Yeah. I'll take the second part.
You look better than Dowd at 40, so just
Dowd is always catching strays. Whether he's here, whether he's not here, Dowd is never safe from you and for all the GL players. To be fair,
that's how it is. It's the reason he's on the team. Let's be honest. But yeah, what were we talking about? I forgot. I got sidetracked. We were talking about King of the Desert and all the good stuff, right?
Yeah, we're going to get into King of the Desert. We're going to do exactly just that. So just a week ago, Hera took home yet another trophy in what is now his 14th 1v1 S-tier tournament victory in a row. But who's counting? I'm sure you're now counting, Ramp. You don't care about it, pretty sure.
I'm counting, but it's not like I really want to count. It's just that it's really easy to keep track. So like I could sit here and be like, oh, I lost track. I forgot. But that would come off way more douchebag than me just saying, yeah, I know what the number is. I add one every time.
You know what the number is, yeah. It's not super important, but you know what the number is.
Yeah, exactly.
Contrary to recent finals, though, Hera had to sweat a lot in this one. The other finalists, our very own The Viper, showed up in great shape and ready to play some pretty aggressive Age of Empires, taking Hera to the very last game of the best of 9 final. And Hera, that's actually what I'd like you to start with this, to pick up on this sort of aggressive, or the aggressiveness that Viper brought to the table. Because I heard you say in the Winners interview you were surprised by it, and you sort of had to adapt. So can you maybe start with that? And just, I think one thing that sort of proves how aggressive the whole thing is that in all the 9 games, only 1 game made it to Imperial Age, and even that one's only like 3 seconds, so that sort of supports the idea that there was a lot of aggressiveness. So yeah, why did it surprise you? And yeah, let's start with that.
Yeah, so in a 9-game series, we saw 3 seconds of Imperial Age. This is very uncommon for an Age of Empires 2 tournament. Normally, in high-level play and pro play, you see a lot of games end early. It's normal. But you also see a fair amount of them go to Imperial Age. Some even get dragged out to like 3 hours and even 4 hours that I played against ACCM in the League One Cup.
Record.
So there are longer games, but in this tournament, there wasn't. And I attribute that to a couple factors. So number one would be the map. First and foremost, the map was extremely aggressive. There's a different script of Arabia that made your resources on average spawn further away. There's a lot of like hills around your base, which is typical for Arabia, and the maps are typically more open as well on this version. So for those reasons, players wanted to go very aggressive with their army. They couldn't just sit back and boom. The ones who tried lost earlier in the tournament, didn't make it to the finals, right? And so the finalists ended up being the guys who were playing very aggressive. But there's also a couple other reasons at play here. So one of them is Viper, who basically employed an all-in strategy every game. If you watch what he was going for like a 1 TC or a 2 TC all-in, and he almost never boomed. Contrast to me, who went all-in in some games, but then also added some economy in other games as well. It was a bit more of a balanced approach, whereas Viper pretty much went all-in every game. Now, I attribute this to him not wanting to get tired in a best of 9, and him also playing the map correctly. And a third reason, he just tends to do this against me very often. I'm not sure exactly why, you'd have to ask him, but it's a pattern I noticed that against other people, he'll start adding town centers, he'll start picking up relics, like typical Viper style, castles on hills. And then against me, he just goes all in every game. And it's difficult to defend because when you're getting all in by like a lesser player, it's normally like, okay, I just defend here on the hill and that's fine. But when you're getting all in against one of the best players in the game, 9 games in a row, it's incredibly hard for me to stay consistent to defend all of them. So it was actually a very nice adaptation from him. I was surprised to see how consistently he was all-inning me, and I think he found relatively good success doing it. So yeah, it was a good strategy in the end for him to employ.
Is that the way to beat you? Of course, when it's Viper doing it, it's a lot harder, but, put you on the ropes and not give you too much time to break. I do feel like a lot of people try to do that, but they're just not successful, I guess.
Yeah, here's the thing. Like, I don't think you want to do the same thing against me every game, but I think, and especially for other tournaments, there's different settings and whatnot that could, be favorable for another playstyle. But for this tournament in particular, I think it ended up being a good playstyle to adopt for Viper. And so for this, for these reasons, it ended up being a really nice approach. But I think for other tournaments, it might not work the same way.
I did see him go pretty aggressive against Winchester. I don't think I remember seeing Viper go forward with 4 villagers in years. And he did that, to be fair, in only one of the games, but he did do that. He went forward with 4 vills and won that game. I think it was Vietnamese against Persians. You said he had to adapt to it. What would an adaptation to this type of playstyle look like in your case?
So my adaptation was basically trying to match it in most cases. So I would also try to all in myself, or I would try to be aware that it's coming. Like I'd know about it, so I try to play like ultra defensive when I need to. So I wouldn't move out. I'd just keep my army at home and wait for him to make the first move, get the economy lead. These are the kind of things you can make or you can do throughout a series to kind of gain an edge over your opponent depending on what he's doing.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay, so we've talked about this many, many times. A lot of people have talked about this many times, but I feel like we have to mention it. The whole Phosphoru affair, we have to bring it up. And there's just been, you hear all sorts of things. I hear Nikov saying he's getting way too much credit. This kind of stuff has been around forever. But yet again, Viper himself credits the strategies they went for it with this Conquistador specifically, which is the only game that he sort of used that sort of strategy. And in the past, Hera, I've heard you say it, you told me before, that you felt like this sort of FC is especially dangerous when you're not expecting it, but if you are expecting it, it's a lot easier to react to it. And in this case, in this particular game, you were not surprised by it. You knew it was coming. You said in the winner's interview, you did exactly what you wanted to do, and yet it still didn't work. So, are there any conclusions you drew from that game? Do you need to go back to the drawing board and think, have you had the time to think about it and what it should have done differently? Where is your head at?
Yeah, I spoke to some other top players about it as well, and I think the conclusion was that I shouldn't have added town centers. So basically my map was quite bad. I didn't have any back wood lines. So there was 2 options. Like if I had a nice map, I could add TCs to the back and kind of slowly give up ground and get to like 4 or 5 range production of skirms and crossbows. But since I didn't have that, what I should have done instead is just stay 1 TC, add like 3-4 ranges and counterattack. Just keep sending archers to the side. I had, Ethiopian crossbows. I had ballistics. These counterattacks would have been super deadly to a player who's very exposed. All he has is a castle at home, and if he sends his conquistadors home, that's a win for me because then his push is not as strong and he can't focus as much on it. That's obviously hindsight. Making that call in the moment is a bit difficult. But what I will say is that on the whole Phosphoru topic, I think the strategies are good. But I don't think they're as unstoppable as people think they are. There's actually a factor at play that isn't talked about. But basically, the current pathing right now does not allow you to micro archers and skirms against mangonels correctly. All right, it's a bit complicated. I have to show exactly how it is. And if there's enough demand for that, if people are like really confused as to what's going on, I can easily make a video showcasing it. I made a video showcasing it to the devs about 4 or 5 months ago, Still no fix, of course. And so right now, if you look at my play in the last couple tournaments, and like most people's play actually, mangonels are getting extreme value. And this is one of the reasons why the Phosphoru rushes are so strong right now, is that crossbows don't micro against mangonels like they used to. And same for skirms. And so these death balls now with conquistadors and mangonels are actually even more deadly because there's essentially no counter to it, not even skill, not even an outplay, essentially nothing. So in that game, I should have counterattacked. The fighting it head on just doesn't work, and the booming just kind of slowed me down. But I think they're strong. Don't get me wrong. The strategies are incredibly strong, but I don't quite think they're unstoppable.
Okay, so there was an interview with Memb and Phosphoru that released like 2 days ago. I'm going to link it down below. And Phosphoru is saying it was a mistake from you to go fast castle. Would you agree?
Yeah, so the counter that I prepared actually maybe I shouldn't say it because I don't think this is going to get nerfed anytime soon. So I prepared a different counter for the Phosphoru strats, and in practice it worked pretty much every time. Like I basically never lost the Phosphoru in practice.
So why didn't you do it?
Once or twice. I didn't do it because I felt like Ethiopian's fast castle is so smooth, and like I had a good map for it, and so I felt like okay, this is something he probably never played against. It should be good. And it kind of was good because like the first few conquistadors I killed easily, so I felt like I was in a great position, and I think it did like decent in that game actually. So it's just an adaptation in the moment, but yeah, definitely not what I prepared.
I'm coming to the conclusion, and I think that's what Phosphoru himself thinks, that specific civs require different counters. So it's not like there's like a blanket counter to every single one of these strats. It's like it's civ specific because. Again, one thing, you can say what you want about Phosphoru. I'm not saying you specifically, but everyone. You can say what you want, but the guy spends an ungodly amount of time, perfecting, thinking about the strategy. He has like a plan for whether he's going to be feudal press. He's got a plan for whether he's going to be Mongol Mengudai, which apparently is the most common counter that people have for it on the ladder, of course. So this is not Huang, but with Huang, you really had the feeling the guy was just winging it. Let me just make like 5 militia or whatever. Let me just go forward, see what happens. This guy really, has a lot of nuance to the strategy. And so I feel he was just saying in the case of Conquistadors specifically that he feels like it's an A tier FC Conquistadors, but it becomes S tier if the opponent tries to fast castle as a counter. Again, I don't know how much stock you want to put into this. I'm just trying to say here the guy thinks very deeply about this. And I kind of feel like there's a bit more nuance than I initially realized when it comes to countering the strategies, that you probably need to have the same nuance in terms with Conquistadors. You counter it this way. If it's Shu, you counter it that way, and so on. But you sort of hinted at, like, you seem to think that there's a fail-safe way of counter this. I gathered from what you said that don't want to reveal it here, and that's totally fair enough. But is that where you think right now that there is like a way to counter this 100%?
Well, there is for sure. Like any strategy game, there's always ways to counter it. And like, for example, if you get lamed at all, if you lose a boar or something, lose a few sheep, it becomes a little bit harder to do. Not impossible. You can still pull it off, but it becomes harder to do. You have to adapt and whatnot. At the end of the day, I think it's a strategy that's viable. It's actually a good strategy, and it does well. It's very scary, but I just don't think it's unstoppable. A lot of people have this narrative that it's unstoppable and it should be nerfed. I don't even think it should be nerfed necessarily. I think certain unique units like the Ratha and whatnot should be nerfed. But overall, you're not going to go ahead and just nerf all the unique units. So the strategy is going to be in the game for basically forever. Especially with the devs we've got, they're quite slow at taking things out that are problematic. And this is like not even that problematic realistically. So I think it's a viable strat. I think it's a good strat. But at the end of the day, we just saw the perfect scenario, which is Arabia only for the Phosphoru to shine. It was the perfect scenario, and Phosphoru didn't win the tournament. So that's like at the end of the day, if someone wants to invest that much time into it, it's not helping out. You know what I mean? Phosphoru himself didn't win it. The people that employed the strategy didn't win the tournament. So it just shows that it's maybe not that strong of a strat that's going to just carry anyone who goes ahead and tries it, And so, on other settings, I don't think the Phosphoru is going to be nearly as strong. So I think it's being blown out of proportion is the point I'm saying. It's a good strat, don't want to discredit it. But at the same time, I don't want to be on the other, side and saying it has to get nerfed. There's no counter. I'm sort of somewhere in the middle where I think it's a fun strat. I do it sometimes myself. It has its place in the game. It's very interesting. And it does have some counters. So, and it's, fragile in some cases. So that's kind of my middle ground approach. I think probably many people can agree with that, but I'm not really sure where people are at in this whole discussion, to be fair.
Yeah, I think one very important point you seem to be making there. At the end of the day, this was Viper who was mostly doing the strategy, and nobody's surprised that Viper made it to the final with or without Phosphor strats, right? It's very possible he would have made it there anyway. So I don't think you can really attribute the fact that he made it to the final to the Phosphor strat. 100% agreed. I had a very, very small chat with him, and Phosphor said he feels like this was a turning point. KotD was a turning point for the meta in Age of Empires 2. You seem to sort of disagree with that, and I already explained why. Last thing before we move on from this whole Phosphor thing. If Viper picks Burmese in that last game, are you shitting your pants because you just lost one game to Phosphor, or you're totally fine with it?
No, it's not a big deal. Like, first of all, like, I have ways to counter it. Second of all, I have the lame option right off the bat. And I don't think the Burmese one is all that strong. And also, like, for example, Burgundian's in that game. So, like, my approach to that game would be for sure, I'm just going to forward him with Flemish Militia and then play from there. And it's a very strong strategy that the Burgundians can do. And also, if I forward him and I have double bit like Bosa behind it, and I can get to monks or something in Castle Age, then I'm going to be in a fine position. Like, again, we saw it work once in the finals, and then the other time I did something stupid again.
A reverse, it was a reverse Phosphor.
and kind of like both times it worked. It can happen. It was something different every time. And in the last game, it would have played out somewhere differently. The question is really on Viper of like why he didn't want to do it. But regardless if he did it or not, I'd have good chances regardless. Like I'd play. At the end of the day, he went Georgians. It's not like he went like freaking Bulgarians or something. He went Georgians. A great civ. He had good chances to win that game as well. So like imagine if you're in Viper's position, you're gonna pick your last pick instead of your third pick. Like that's crazy to me. So he'd have good chances to win either way, and he just went one way. And fans will always criticize the other thing. If he went Phosphoru, no, Viper shouldn't have went Phosphoru. He had Georgians. How can he go Phosphoru? You always criticize the other one anyway.
So of course. Very fair. Okay, so you already talked a little bit about the map, but I wonder because last episode we talked about it. You weren't totally convinced that the map would deliver good games. Have you changed on that? Have those doubts been dissipated now that the tournament is over?
So overall, the map delivered very good games. It's this huge step up from the Lat Arabia. If you watch Lat Arabia, half of the time it's just walls before anyone fights, and we're just doing these big booms on Arabia. And that's never been the spirit of Arabia. Arabia's always been a fighting map. It's always been a chaotic map. It's always been like it's been balanced in the sense that it's not like Atacama or something, but it's been a map that brings you to like really have to make concessions on your economy to survive the current moment. You don't see that on Lat Arabia at all. But KotD Arabia really brought that out of us, and I really appreciated that. I really appreciated the map for that. My one criticism, though, is that potentially we saw a little bit too much all in, and I think that's like the grand finals would have been a lot more epic if some of the games went longer, in my opinion. So perhaps it was a little too aggressive. Maybe tone it down a little bit, and then you have your perfect map. But for me, it was a huge step up, and I really, really enjoyed it.
What would toning it down a little bit would entail in bigger wood lines, not as far away, maybe because we had also more neutral golds, which personally I think it's great because I believe it favors like map control to have more neutral golds. You can take more resources and all that. So what would entail something like toning down the map, in your opinion?
I think the main thing is probably just like some generations have like really big woodlines, and one guy has a really easy to wall map, and then the other guy can't wall. So probably just making the maps a little bit more fair overall. And like if one guy has a bad map, the other guy probably has to also have a bad map. This is contrary to what I was saying like a few weeks ago, where I was saying like, no, I'm okay with one guy having a good map and another guy having a bad map. You can adapt. But seeing how it played out in tournaments that happened like 3-4 times, maybe a bit more in like the later rounds, and it ended up being like bad games, like just one-sided games. So that could be an idea, or just maybe making slightly less hills around players' bases, for example. Reduce the elevation a little bit, and that can make it a bit more balanced.
Okay, so other things that have sort of stand out to me in the tournament, the siege tower abuse. I have to me it looks silly. I don't want to pronounce myself on whether it's OP or not. I'd much rather hear it from you, but to me it just looks silly, regardless of whether it's OP or not. Well, what's your take on the whole thing?
I think I can clearly say it's completely overpowered as a concept.
Okay.
Is the strategy overpowered? I don't think it is, because if you force it every game, it's not going to work every game. But the combination of Siege Tower plus Fire Lancer is undoubtedly overpowered because it basically has no counter in the game. Like there's nothing that actually beats it. If your opponent gets the Siege Tower plus Fire Lancer specifically, there's nothing that actually can fight it. Because here's why: the Fire Lancers, normally units when they eject, they have a delay before they can attack the first shot. Okay, any unit, range unit, melee unit. Fire Lancer is the exception to that rule. For whatever reason, they come out of the Siege Tower and they shoot immediately. Okay. That's why it's completely busted because of that. So that strategy 100% overpowered. Overall, is it overpowered? Probably not, because you can't go for it every game. But regardless of where you are on the overpowered discussion or not, my perspective on why it should be nerfed or should be changed is because I just don't think that kind of stuff belongs in Age of Empires. I think it looks really silly. I think it's not something that appeals to a new viewer. I think it's fun the first time. I think it was super cool the first time. Like, wow, this is like super interesting. And then now it's like, if people are doing it every game and it becomes the meta, it's not interesting anymore. It's actually very lame. So trust me, I played like tons of practice games and there was just nothing you can do in half the scenarios against that. And it's not just the Siege Tower, it's also the Fire Lancer being absolutely absurd of a unit as well. So that's also like the second problematic unit there.
See, I totally agree with that it looks silly. The problem is there are a ton of things that look silly. We just aren't used to it. So I don't think we could use that as an argument. For example, and I know people are going to hate me for it, I think the way that ballistics can be abused is silly too. I wouldn't mind...
I agree.
Whoa! Thank you. Okay, thank you.
I agree, but there's no fix. That's the thing. There's no fix.
What about this? You remember the solution they have for the TCs? Because the TCs couldn't hit shit? Yes. I think they increased like the projectile size and they increased a tiny little bit the speed of their projectile. I think those were the two changes.
Yeah.
Would that be too much? I feel, of course, there's a very fine line, but I feel like that would make the whole dancing just look stupid, especially with ships. It still looks so dumb.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I don't know if that solution would work. You'd have to test it. I'm not really a good person at visualizing like those kind of changes. I always have to try them out and then let you know.
Everybody does, yeah.
People, maybe have to test it out, but I don't think we're going to get a solution for that. So that's why I accept that it's going to be in the game. But here's the thing: at least with the ballistic dodging, it's somewhat of a skill or somewhat of like you have to be focusing on it. Whereas the Siege Tower Siege Tower Fire Lancer, it's a skill. It's very easy to learn, and it's super easy to abuse. I think it's a whole different ball game. And it's like we already have a use for the Siege Tower. You don't need it to also be this like freaking Ferrari running around your base. So again, I don't have the strongest feelings about it, but for me, it's a very easy decision to just like gut that, take it out of the game, and just have Siege Tower be a viable option to scale walls like it's intended to be.
So your solution would be, add the cooldown to the units so that it can't shot immediately once they ungarrison. Would that be the first solution to try? You reckon?
That has to happen 100% because every other unit in the game behaves like that. So whether you're ungarrisoning from a town center or a siege tower, you need to have that delay, or else the Fire Lancer is just not following the rules of the game, which it already isn't. Let's be honest, it has a gun and it's a melee unit, so it's already breaking enough rules. But let's not let it break all the rules.
Only a few of them. Standground Patrol was kind of abused. Everybody knew it was going to be abused. Was it more than you expected? Is there something that needs to be done there, or do we just have to accept that's where we are right now?
But that's 100% on the devs again. Like that was not possible a few patches ago. People think that that's what I did at Red Bull. What I did at Red Bull was similar. It's also using the stand ground, but it's just patrolling in one tile. So like creating this kind of like a lot of units hit at the same time on one tile. It was not mobile. Then the devs saw that. They're like, oh, that sucks. Let's let every unit in the game do that, but not in one tile, anywhere. And so you have players just stand ground patrolling into you, and they just stack into you. So you have like 40 melee units on two tiles.
So that's what I'm wondering, because you explained this in the last episode. The difference is that whether you patrol within one tile or whether you're just like continuously, or you just send your army forward in a, what is it, in stand ground, and you patrol it. But isn't like the practical effect the same, that the units still stack on one tile if you're very close to the army anyway?
Yeah, exactly. I would argue that the stand ground patrol into the opponent army is way stronger than in the one tile. In the one tile, the enemy has to engage you. It's so many.
Yeah, you can decide not to engage. Yeah.
That's why when people made this whole thing like Hera's bug abusing, like he won Red Bull because of that, I'm like, this is absolutely so silly, because it's not something that can win you games. It's just something that can at most hold you a position. You know what I mean? It's not oppressive to your opponent. Yeah, it's gimmicky. It sucks. I hate it as well. Like I agree with that. But this new version is way worse in my opinion, And it's the devs are the only solution here, by the way, because this was not in the game a few patches ago, and now it's the easiest thing in the world to do. You don't have to you can try it yourself right now. You can go into the game, stand ground, patrol units forward, and they'll stack every time. Just keep them on stand ground.
It has got to do with something that they made because of the pathing. Yeah, yes. It's my explanation, right? Because they wanted to make units path a little bit better, especially melee units, I believe.
The pathing always creates these like secondary issues. Like they're trying to fix one thing, and then players find a way to abuse like 2 or 3 other things, and it just creates a never-ending cycle for them. But what you notice is like the effects of that is like, for example, Viper in the grand finals, and like everyone used it, by the way. It's not pointing, just giving an example.
No, everybody was using it for sure. Yeah.
Every time there would be a scout engagement between me and Viper, he would just stand ground patrol at me. And if he has 1 extra scout, I can never engage. It's not a skill thing anymore. It's if I have more, I do it to him. If he has more, he does it to me. He just happened to have more in like the Vietnamese Way game. I remember he has always 1 extra scout. He would just every time I see him, he just doing it towards me. So I have to run. So what that leads to is like we're just never engaging. And whoever wins the fight always wins the fight. There's no chance to micro against it. And it's just absolutely horrible in every sense of the way. So that needs to be fixed, and the devs are the only hope. You can't ban this tool. It's the core mechanic of the game.
Just to be clear, I don't think you're criticizing Viper, right? You're just saying that's what this kind of stuff... Yeah, that's just the kind of stuff that this leads to, which is totally normal. So, before we close the topic, I always like to report on the viewership of these tournaments. So for the King of the Desert 6, we had a peak of 47.7 thousand viewers, 48,000 viewers if you want. And this is a very, very good number. It's now, I mean, it depends how many caveats you want to put on this, but the Garrison, in theory, had more viewers this year. It had 52.5. Though the caveat there, Hera, is I don't know if you remember this, but they sort of gave the production sort of gave everybody like a feed of what they were streaming, broadcasting. And so you could just put it on your OBS, or not even OBS, you could just put it on your stream or whatever. You don't have to do anything. And then you're live and you're getting tons of viewers. I know that we did this, Gamer Legion did this. We got like 2,000 live viewers or whatever. And it didn't do anything, it was no work involved. And I feel like this is obviously going to inflate numbers. All players were streaming it. All streamers were streaming it, regardless of whether they were at the PCs or not. So there's this caveat, which of course is always going to inflate the numbers a lot. And Memb was talking about, and you seemed to confirm it, and I guess you can talk about it if you don't mind, that Twitch has now sort of changed the way that they count views. Is that correct? That if you have like several tabs open, your views are not really being counted on all tabs, on only one of them. Do you know anything about that?
I heard him say that, and I've heard someone else say that, but I swear I haven't gotten any confirmation yet about whether that's true or not. So maybe someone in the comments can kind of fill us in about what happened there. I have to look into it myself. But yeah, if what he's saying is true, essentially, if you are watching a stream and you have another stream open, the other stream you have open, you don't count as a viewer there. You only count as a viewer for the stream that you're currently watching, that you have the tab on. I don't know if that's true. But if it is, then that's more impressive for the KotD numbers, for sure.
Yeah, Memb did send me a screenshot of something that Twitch wrote in like a Discord server or whatever. The language is very vague as always. I don't think they like to give it away how they count views. But at some point, it is true there was like a crackdown on view bots or whatever. Now, they were trying to make sure that no bots are being counted, and a lot of streamers complained that their live viewership went down. Some folks are going to be familiar with this for sure. In any case, very impressive view number. Whether that was the most viewed tournament of the year or not, again, depends on how Twitch is counting these numbers. At the very worst, the second most viewed, which is still very impressive and very good, especially considering this is not a LAN tournament, and Garrison was a LAN, which always tends to attract more exposure. And so, yeah, I thought this was a fantastic tournament. Great job by Memb and his team, as always. Again, they were, pulled into this thing very late. They had very little time to prepare and still delivered an amazing show. So I thought this was a great tournament. And I think you said as much as well, right? You really enjoyed the tournament.
It was one of the best online tournaments. Because here's the thing. I think LAN events are always better for me. Like I was, what's better, going to China or playing in my mom's basement? Like obviously going to China is going to be better, obviously. But like for an online tournament, this is, I think, easily the best in the last couple of years. Maybe since the last Hidden Cup or something like that. So for me, it was amazing.
Yeah, I enjoyed watching it a lot as well. All right, so let's move on. Hera, end of the year is always a time for reflection, or at least for me. I don't know if it is for you. Always a time to look back.
I reflect every day, don't worry.
You reflect every day. So
at the end of every day, I recess for the next one.
So you do it at the end of the year for sure, too. In any case, I gathered a few numbers that I'd like to share with you and the viewers. So let's start maybe with the not so positive numbers, and there are always caveats to these things, or maybe it's just cope for me, I don't know. But here's what I got. In terms of the prize pool, for 2025, we had a total prize pool of roughly $470,000, which sounds like a lot, but it's actually the lowest since 2020. However, it's a very similar number to 2023. 2023 had 480. And in this case, I really don't think that I'm coping. There's a very obvious explanation. Can you guess what do both these years have in common, 2025 and 2023?
We don't have a Red Bull.
No Red Bull. A pretty easy explanation. If you have Red Bull, I think next year it's going to be $200,000 for Age of Empires 2, I believe.
Yeah.
And 2023 was $150,000. You add to that, and you suddenly have all the numbers that you've had in 2022, in 2024, and so on. What's maybe not so easy to explain is total viewership in the Age of Empires category on Twitch only. So I looked at these numbers too, and viewership is now down 17% related to last year. Maybe I want to hear from you if you have like an explanation. Is it Twitch just getting worse as a platform? Is it viewers really abandoning Age of Empires? Is it because we didn't have a Red Bull and a Hidden Cup, which are historically the tournaments that bring the most viewership? Even though I'm no mathematician or a statistician, I can't tell if like you not having these two tournaments that bring a lot of viewers is actually enough to move the average down that much when you consider like you're looking at a whole year. I wouldn't know, but how do you see this? How do you explain this?
So there's a few factors at play, but first I want to talk about the consequence of having a bad year like this. So first of all, it's like you said, we don't have a Red Bull, so it's like one bad year, then one good year. But from where I stand, I potentially think we might have missed out on Esports World Cup 2026 because we had a bad year in 2025.
Is that confirmed? We've missed on it?
I don't know if it's confirmed or not. I have no inside information, but there's only one game left to announce, and StarCraft's not in. It was there last time, and like at least we haven't heard anything internally from Age of Empires 2. And so like I'm working under the assumption that we're not going to get into it, and I think that that's potentially due to the viewership we had this year being on a downward trend. Because again, we know as in Age of Empires community, we know it's like, oh, we just have a Red Bull, we have all these factors, but the people working with Esports World Cup, they probably don't know or don't care. They're looking at only the numbers, right? So again, there's a lot of speculation on my end. I don't have any inside information whatsoever. But I feel like it could have played a role into not having us be part of it. I think if we had a good year in 2025, that could have actually pushed us into the 2026 Esports World Cup, which I think would have been huge for the scene. Now, that's obviously just the importance on having good numbers. I just want to highlight that, I guess, before going into it. I think the numbers were down, and there's a few reasons for that. So obviously missing on the Red Bull, that's the obvious one. But I think in general, we have this issue with Age of Empires that we need to renew our audience. And I don't know if we're doing enough audience renewal. So we have a really solid core base audience. Like people love Age of Empires. We have the same players playing for 10 years, the same watchers watching for 10 years. There's a loyal fan base. We love this game. Like we really love it, and we're always going to be here. But then how do you replace the people that just, lose interest, or they just, grow out of it, or they just don't have time to watch like they used to? You need to bring in new viewers. And I think that's where we're kind of lacking as a community. I think we're not bringing in enough new viewers. There are many ways to do that, but it's probably one of the most challenging things to do in this day and age, bring in players and new viewers to an RTS. But I would say that that's the number one reason for a decline in viewership. And I think that's more important than having a Red Bull or not having a Red Bull. That's from where I stand. That's like the number one reason why we have lower viewership if we don't have, crazy big events.
Okay, I want to hear from you what kind of ideas you have for that we can do to renew viewership. And I have my own ideas. But before we go that, I also looked upon TOS suggestion. I also looked at like the top 5 streamers in the Age of Empires 2 category just to see what their metrics are. That was his idea to sort, because the 5 top streamers are like, I don't know what percentage of the audience, but a very big percentage of the audience. And the average, I'm not going to name everybody because I don't want this to feel like I'm targeting somebody and say, hey, look at you. I don't want to do that. Well, I will name one person, and that's Hera, because you're the only one that's all in the green. You look at your metrics, everything is in the green. Average is up, followers are up, whatever, hours watched are up, but you're the only one. Every other one streamer on the top 5 is down on average, some by a lot, some by not so much. In some cases, the average is down, but the hours watched are up, which I think is a consequence of people streaming more, but with lower average. But again, this just underscores that there does seem to be some sort of, I don't know if it's, again, I think it could also be just Twitch just being a worse platform in terms of more ads served or whatever. I don't know how much of a role that plays, but I just wanted to put these numbers out there. So yeah, I wonder what would be your suggestion in order to get, newer viewers, renew the audience, as you say? Because I have my own, but I'd like to hear your first.
Well, I've been watching my own numbers, and everything has been up. I'm happy that it's showing that on your end as well, not just internally on my side. So everything's been up, and I attribute that to a few things. So number one, we've been more consistent on all platforms. Me and my editing team. We have Instagram, we have TikTok, we have I've been posting on Twitter. I have YouTube Shorts, I have YouTube videos, I have a secondary channel. Having a lot of content out there in your name is really good for the algorithm, because then when people search anything remotely close to Age of Empires or anything remotely close to to a fighting game or strategy game, my video has a chance of coming up. And I have tons of people on Instagram Shorts or on TikTok that say, "What game is this?" They're just watching something and they just want to know what game it is. This is huge. This is the number one thing we could be doing to bring new people into the game that are potentially younger or potentially just completely new to Age of Empires. And I think that that's the number one reason why my numbers are all up, because I'm bringing in new people that don't know anything about Age of Empires that are now getting interested because they come across one of my shorts or one of my videos. And on top of that, I've done a few collaborations, like one with H-Rock that hit like millions of views, which is ridiculous. Like, that's incredibly good for the scene. Potentially another one coming up with him as well, potentially more with other people. I think this is also something that could bring in, extra viewers. Now, taking that to a broader sense, I think that's what Age of Empires 2 needs. I think other creators need to, get into the short space or get into the different platform spaces. And I think we should do more collaborations internally and externally. So, for example, I hate how disconnected we are in the AV2 community. I hate it because we have this guy's community, then this guy's community. And how often do they mix? Like, seriously, when's the last time we've seen a YouTube video between two Age of Empires 2 creators? When is the last time? I think, taking aside co-casts away, because that's, obviously good, but, that's kind of like low-hanging fruit as far as a collaboration goes. When's the last time we've seen a collaboration? And the fans would kill for a collaboration. Every single time I've done one with Viper or with, a Doubt or something, people loved it. It's fantastic. I'd like to see more of that, because what happens is if we share our internal audiences, let's say I do a collab with T90 just for argument's sake. T90 is a huge platform. I have a big platform. We share, for a good video, a well thought out collab. We kind of share the audiences. Now his numbers are up and my numbers are up. And if both of our numbers are up, we have higher chances of reaching new viewers because they see good numbers and said they might check it out. That's essentially how content creation works. And that's what we need more from the scene. So more internal collabs, more external collabs, and more dominance on other platforms, let's say. Because at the end of the day, neither of us are competing with each other. We're all on the same team. It's if I think there's a saying that if the tide rises,
tide lifts all boats. Yeah, we've heard this over and over.
You said it before, but that's that's actually the concept. Like, if one guy does well, that's good for that one guy. But if everyone starts, to work together and whatnot and do well, then everyone will benefit. And even, sorry, I kind of misspoke there. If one guy does well, then he's bringing in a lot of viewers for everyone at the end of the day anyway. So
I think there's more true on YouTube than on Twitch. Would you agree? I feel like on Twitch it's a lot more a zero-sum game. That's what it feels to me like. If you're at the top, you get all the viewers, and it's a lot harder if you're, because nobody checks.
I'll tell you why.
Not really? Okay.
I'll tell you why. So, I mean, you're right that, like, if you're at the top, you get all the viewers. But here's the thing. This is something that T90 told me like a few years back. He said, if you do if you come co-cast with T90, for example, he's talking to me. If you come co-cast, you're not going to spike 1,000 viewers on that stream. But what's going to happen is the next time that T90 is not live and I'm live, and there's a T90 viewer from that collaboration that is lurking around on Twitch, you may be like, oh, this is Hera. I recognize him from the co-cast he did with T90. And so I have +1 viewer. And this is obviously a very micro scale, but this is exactly what happens. Like, for example, take Lewis. Lewis casted on my channel for the Ling 1 Cup. He hit something like 5,500 peak on my channel. That's like thousands of people that have never heard about Lewis. He might have made a good impression on them. Lewis is not going to spike 5,000 viewers the next day, obviously, but he might have, a dozen extra viewers,
right,
or maybe
very
50
slow growth. Would you agree that YouTube is a lot better for that, though? Because with the
100%.
algorithm, if you watch a video with Hera and Atrioc, the next thing you know, you're getting a video from Atrioc, from his podcast or whatever. That's a little bit what happened to me. Suddenly I'm getting videos from him with Gavin Newsom on his podcast. I mean, I do follow politics quite a lot, but I think that's why I was getting these recommendations. I feel like YouTube is a lot better when it comes to discoverability. So it's 100%. Easier
and also,
to go there.
The collab stays there permanently. This is why I absolutely love collabs on YouTube, because I really encourage the content creators, like AW2 content creators, let's get together and let's do some stuff, because the fans love it. It's really good for the algorithm, and it stays there permanently. It's work that just stays there permanently, and new fans can always go back and rewatch, watch it, or even rewatch it in some cases. So I think it's so good for the scene, and I think that's one thing that can really just kind of elevate us all.
That's such a good point. More collaboration. I mean, I know we've been telling this story for a very long time, and it's interesting. You've been consistent, and it's true. We don't see a lot of collaboration. Hey, do you think if I, we have this like quiz format on the channel from time to time. You think Atrioc would be joining us if you put in a good word? You and Atrioc, I don't know. I really want to bring Spirit at some point. The guy just refuses. He doesn't want to do it, but at some point I'm going to assist more. But Atrioc?
I can always ask him, but so the thing is, like, he's quite busy. He's got a lot of things going on, so he'd have to be like super interested in that. So I can always like pitch it to him, but
all right,
yeah.
You've got a collaboration with the two set violin guys. Again, those are classic musicians. Me too, classical musicians. So I feel like we could have a bit of a rapport there, at some point.
Yeah, actually, I could ask them and Davey. By the way, I absolutely love those three guys. Have just been phenomenal. I kept in contact with them, and it's about time we get together and play some more games. But they're really nice people, super genuine. So I think we can get them on a game show potentially. I can always pitch them the idea. Again, it comes down, they're also busy, so it comes down to whether they want to do it or not.
Because you need to warm these people up, so then I can ask them to join the quiz
okay,
show.
Yeah. Because if Masmora sends them a message like, "Who the hell is this guy?" But if Hera sends them a message, maybe they've been watching.
Exactly.
Enough,
that's exactly how it works. So. Okay, so yeah, it's very interesting to hear what you said there about the collaborations. Very, very interesting. To me, what worries me a little bit is that we're not seeing new content creators. And I feel like our scene makes it incredibly hard. I mean, it's just hard in general, for sure. I'm not trying to make like we're worse than other games or whatever. Because I just feel like, we had such an increase. We're going to talk about it just in a few minutes. We had such an increase in player base recently. And you would think that increase would lead to more content creators trying to make a name for themselves. And we just don't see newer ones exploding or anything of the sorts. And I think it's because, well, maybe we might be saturated. I don't know. I think we make it incredibly hard for new content creators to come along, especially when it comes to casters. I feel like if you're a pro player, I don't want to say that it's easier, but it's a clearer path to grow on Twitch. You have to be good. And that's a big ask, of course, but you have to be good. And if you're a very good player, you have a calling card. People can start watching you. Yeah, I've been seeing this guy placing on tournaments, so let me see what's up. Let me see what his content like. And then on top of that, you happen to be entertaining. Cool, great. People suddenly like you. I feel like that's what's happening with Lewis. He's an incredible player. I think he's entertaining. So at some point, he starts growing. But if you're only like a caster, and we do need those, because casters are also tournament organizers and all of that, there's just no path for you. Ideally, you would get money from Microsoft to organize your own tournaments, but then even if you do get money, then all the bigger guys get all the views. But even what more often than not ends up happening is that they don't get the money because they're not big enough. And it's just like this vicious cycle, where things just don't work for them. And again, I'm not proposing a solution. I'm not saying don't make it open strip. It's just recognizing a problem, pointing out a problem, I believe.
But I don't think that the reason why we don't see new casters is because they don't have a direct path. I think the direct path is actually the same as the player's path. So for example, the player's path, the player has to become the best player in the world or one of the best players in the world for people to watch them. So how come the caster doesn't have to become one of the best casters in the world?
Because I don't think there's an objective way of saying who's the best caster or who's better and who's worse. Because, Hera, listen to me. I've been here for a very long time. T90, I love T90. I love Dave. I love all those guys. When they started getting big, they were not this good. Okay? I was around. The way they got to be this good, experience, getting invited to tons of tournaments, having money from Microsoft to organize their own tournaments, more and more experience. we're going to have another Red Bull tournament. It's going to be the exact same casters for 7 years straight or whatever. Why can't we have like one up-and-coming caster who's gain experience, learn from the best, get a little bit better, you know? Because these guys, they were not as good as they are now. I've been around. I've seen them cast 5 years, 6 years ago, you know?
Well, so if you want Red Bull to do charity and they're putting millions of dollars into this event, they want the best casters, the ones that are proven. If you want them to do charity and take a risk on someone, pay them $500,000. Tell them, take a risk on this guy. Obviously, the numbers are inflated, but
I don't want to sound entitled. Obviously, I'm just saying what I wish would happen. Obviously,
so like I think if you look at a player, people don't realize how difficult it is to become a pro player. This is like years and hours every single day. Is any caster putting in years and hours every single day to become the best at their craft or to make a name for themselves? I don't see the effort. The closest is Daniela, and Daniela has had a crazy surge of viewership on Twitch. Has she not been? She's maybe tripled her viewership on average. Just by she casted every single tournament. She's gotten better at casting. Now I don't watch her per se like very often. I've tuned in here and there, but even I've tuned in. I barely watch tournaments, by the way, and I've tuned in a few times to Daniela, right? So Daniela has done a great job of doubling and tripling her viewership, and that's just hard work and trying her best to make something happen. And now she's actually like a decent name in the casting community. People look forward to Daniela's streams. They know that she's going to be covering stuff, and that's a great example. And the question is, why aren't more people doing this? Like you can grow as a caster, which is going to be the same amount of work it takes to grow as a pro player. So you talk about the direct path of growing as a pro player. It's not as direct as it looks. Becoming the best is not direct at all. You have to get better at the gameplay. You have to find time. You have to be there mentally and emotionally. You have to
not
structure
implying
your day
it's
around
easy.
it.
Just to be clear,
No,
not implying
I totally
it's
understand,
easy whatsoever. Yeah.
I'm using the same language you're using, because a direct path, I know what you're talking about, but I'm arguing against that by saying it's not as direct of a path as it looks. And I think it's the same for the casting. It's not as direct of a path as it looks, but it's similar in the sense that you just have to be really good. Like I don't think people are going to give up their T90 Dave collabs, which are incredible, or their Memb energetic moments, or their even the Nilly like solid casting. They're not going to give that up to give you a chance if you're not really good. And I think that we just haven't seen a lot of people that are very good.
Okay, what I would question, I
reality.
just don't think it's obvious what's good and what's bad. You have your idea of what's good and what's bad. I have my idea. A lot of people have their idea. I just don't think it's that obvious. And when in terms of a pro players, it's very obvious. You're winning tournaments, you're placing high, then yeah, you're one of the best. Easy. You know what I'm saying? A lot of this is taste. Also don't think it's that big of a risk to include an up-and-coming streamer or caster. I don't think that person's going to break. Again, a Daniela be included in Red Bull.
But we're talking like thousands of dollars here, like tens of thousands to fly someone out and pay them a salary.
Yeah, but it's not a risk in the sense she's been doing this for years. It's experience. I see Riot's doing this all the time. For like lower rounds of a tournament, you include a caster that you haven't heard of before. Yeah. CSGO does this all the time too.
I mean, I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you on that. It would be nice for people to give an opportunity, but at the end of the day, they're not running a charity. This is the point I'm making. They ultimately get to say, I wouldn't feel comfortable criticizing Red Bull saying, oh yeah, they should do this, if I'm not ready to be like, yo, listen, I'll give you guys $30,000, fly her out and pay her a salary so she can cast. And Daniela is just an example. Perhaps she deserves it. If anyone deserves it, it's probably her. She's put in the most work. Her numbers are up, for example. It's definitely a good shout. But I think it's hard to just sit here and be like, they should do this when they're the ones providing, the event for us.
I just would wish to see more opportunities. And again, I'm not saying they should do it. Of course, Red Bull does what's best for their brand and for their tournament. Easy, yeah. Absolutely. I'm just saying what I wish I would see and what I think could potentially help the scene in terms of getting more casters and more content creators and renewing the audience, which is what you're talking about. I think that's one way of renewing it, just getting new content creators, with new content.
Yeah, so here's my take on it, and this is kind of like just to wrap things up. So I agree with you that like if it's a wish, I agree. I wish we can have extra content or different casters and whatnot. But what I would say is that I think the work really starts at home for the content creator. And you talked about earlier that the best player you see because he's winning tournaments. Well, the best caster you'll see because he's got numbers. He's got higher numbers watching him in tournaments. That's the metric for a caster. Yes, it's all subjective on an individual basis whether someone's good or bad. But if 1,000 people think some guy's good and only 10 people think this other guy's good, then the guy with 1,000 is clearly doing a better job.
But it's Twitch. It's Twitch working. because the top guys get the most viewers.
Are
you
you
just said
working
it
with
yourself.
Kick or something? You've been hating on Twitch the entire podcast. Yes, Twitch is not good for growth, but there's no reason they can't be making YouTube videos. Is any answer me this? Pro players, the ones coming up, are playing 8 hours a day. Lucho, Lewis, they're playing 8 hours a day. Is any caster casting 8 hours a day and recording videos for YouTube? Yes or no?
I think there was a time. I can't say for sure.
It's no. Obviously, it's no.
It's a no?
It's no. There's not a single caster putting in 8 hours of work and making YouTube videos out of it. There's not a single one. And that's what it takes to become a pro caster. Same way how it takes for a pro player to become as good as he can be. Like, that's the reality of it. This whole idea of just waiting for handouts. I hope somebody finds me casting for 10 viewers on Twitch a couple hours on the weekend, and I hope that they invite me to Red Bull. It's not going to happen. And it's not to diminish anyone's hard work. I actually give credit to people working hard as I give credit to Daniela. But this whole sitting around and waiting for miracles to happen is not going to work. You got to get out there and you got to make videos. You got to build up your audience and you got to be good at it. If you spend 10 hours a day, but you're not good at it and the numbers are showing, find something else. That's the reality of the world we live in. So I don't want to come off as being harsh, but it's honestly the truth. And if people are not operating within the truth, we're going to be living in this fantasy world where Red Bull's not inviting casters and nobody knows why. But the reason why is obvious. So anyway,
no, that's your position. That's fair enough. I feel like the reason you're not seeing that kind of investment is just because it doesn't pay off. And there was a time when that kind of investment did pay off for casters. When we were growing as a scene and Microsoft first got involved, it was a lot easier to make that commitment. Let me stream for 8 hours, cast games, post video on YouTube. These days, the return is just not there. And I think if you don't see it, you're much less likely to commit to it,
That I agree with. That's where some of the existing content creators can help with collaborations. Like if you see some guy doing good work, you can give a collaboration. You can do a react. I actually did a react to a guy with 100 subscribers, and I saw a video of his. It was about me, so it came up to my thing because it was about me. It's actually how the algorithm works. I didn't look into it. It just had Hera in the title, and I obviously run a platform all about Hera. Go figure. So the algorithm thinks I like Hera, so they give me this. They feed this to me, and I did a react on it. He had 100 subscribers. After the reaction video, which I loved, his video quality was also really good. He spiked to like 800 subscribers, and I don't take credit. I give him the credit because he's been running it since. He's been having higher numbers. He's been communicating with his fans. I've been keeping up with him. He's a good content creator. He has less than 1,000 subscribers, but he's doing good work. He did an edited video that was a good topic, well executed. Not perfect. His mic was ass. I told him, and he agreed. But it was not perfect, but it was great. It was good. It was good enough. And that's one example of making it from scratch and obviously, he's still not getting paid the big bucks. He's got 800 subscribers, but it's something that he can work with.
Okay. So thank you for your perspective. Again, I think it's illuminating and I'm not totally disagreeing. And I'm not saying this is an easy solution. To be fair, I don't have a solution. I'm just trying to point out what I believe is a problem. But now let's talk about the positives. Let's talk about the positives, because there are positives too. And the first one would be the player count. The player count for Age of Empires 2, again, we don't have like a total player count for this. We have more like the averages, which are also very important, of course. And folks will know, but Steam does release like the monthly averages for each month. And then what I did is I sort of averaged each month, and I got like a yearly average for 2025. And that was the highest, 2025 is the highest yearly average that we've had since the release of DE. And that was 16,700 people online at any given time. And in terms of peak, we also had a 32,000 peak, which was the highest since April 2021. So again, these are very good numbers. 2024 had already been a record, and 2025 surpassed it. So we have in 2025. On top of that, you can also add that we have the PlayStation release. And these are people that were not there before. So we're actually adding that on top of it. And so in total, pretty safe to say 2025 had as many people playing Age of Empires 2 as ever before, which I think is great. Great news for the franchise, great news for everybody. Then, in terms of DLCs and patches, we had 2 DLCs this year, which is pretty much on par with what we usually have. But in terms of scope, Hera, I think in terms of the sheer amount of content, I think 2025 probably takes the cake. We have like 3 kingdoms with 5 new civilizations, which was totally unheard of. Then you had like the skins patch with no castles and no elite units and whatever. And also the Chronicles with 18 missions and a brand new soundtrack or whatever. So again, a lot of content this year. Perhaps even too much content with 5 new civilizations. I don't know, what's your take on that?
Well, first of all, I want to comment on the PlayStation release. I feel like that went under the radar, but I guess if they boosted the numbers overall, that's that's just a net positive. But that's quite nice. I kind of forgot about that, but it's good that it is working in the background. I think the content's been nice, honestly. Overall, I actually played through one of the Chinese DLC, the Three Kingdom DLC campaign missions, and I had a great time. It was 3 hours, and I had a good time the entire way. The heroes that they gave us were super cool. I love that your decisions kind of impact the campaigns and whatnot. It's like amazing. So I personally love the content they're bringing out. I think it's great. Only criticism is some like multiplayer balance and whatnot. But overall, I'm a big fan of the content they brought out this year.
Yeah, we talked about before. We talked about like the quality of the campaigns, and again, that's totally taste dependent. Some folks are going to feel like we've talked about this many times before. Don't need to get into that anymore. In general, I'll say 2025 was a very good year for Age of Empires 2. I know a lot of fun moments, a lot of good tournaments, of course, player base going up. I guess this thing with the viewership is something that we in the professional scene, and especially on Twitch, maybe need to look into. And I love your suggestion of actually wanting to have more cooperation, more cross content between content creators. That would be really good to see next year. Was there like a favorite moment for you in 2025? Before we move on?
Yeah, the King Snipe. Sorry, I had the answer because I answered it on a community notes thing or something like that. But community awards. But yeah, the King Snipe that I did against Yo in the Garrison is probably the most electric moment I've ever had in the tournament. So yeah, that one probably.
Yo is decking Cavalier.
King is moving.
He should see this.
Garrisoning.
The King is on the move.
That's why we called this tournament.
There is another army swooping in from the other side.
No way.
If this actually happens, I will lose my mind. There's no way. There is no way. There is no way it's gonna die. It's gonna die because it got hit, and it will not pack to the tower. Hera does it. That was absolutely unbelievable. The Trebs were a setup. Nilly.
Okay, so let's move on to the new DLC. This time around, the rumors were right, and the next DLC for Age of Empires 2 is called The Last Chieftains. Will focus on South American civs, the Mapuche, the Muisca, and the Tupi. All 3 new civilizations will be available for ranked multiplayer, and each one of them will be given a brand new campaign. The whole thing is set to release February 2026, with a pre-order period starting in January 2026. Now, I want to give you a massive credit to Zetnus. You remember Zetnus for sure. He's a map scripter. I think he was the map scripter for Masters of Hyper-Random. And to my knowledge, I think he was like the first one to speculate back in October that the DLC will be about South America. And you know how I find out about it? He saw that there's like in some map scripts or whatever that they're like new animals. They're like references to new animals. And then he went ahead and Googled what's like the most likely habitat for some of these animals. And because of that, he concluded that the next DLC is going to be in South America. So
that's crazy.
A real detective work there from Zetnus. And it's funny to me, Hera, that this time around, they didn't give any time for speculation because you remember for the Three Kingdoms, people were a bit pissed with the civilizations. I actually think it's a good idea to not give time for speculation. Then people don't get disappointed or anything like that.
Yeah, people build up expectation in that window for sure.
Correct. So I think that they did it right this time around. I'm hoping they don't bring too many new unique units. That would be my hope for the new civilizations. I don't know what you feel about that. Three Kingdoms, too many civs, too many new units, in my opinion.
First of all, I think it's absolutely ambitious that they're bringing in new civs to ranked already, because we're at 50 and we're gonna have like 3 more, so that's a lot of civs going to ranked. And I think I agree with you. I think if we have a lot of unique units coming in with this DLC, then we're gonna be in a situation where civs just feel way too different. Like what I would like to see is just civs that are normal. They feel normal, but they have a couple things interesting about them, or just a new set of bonuses that make them feel special. And then maybe a couple unique techs that elevate certain units that we just haven't seen before, or elevate existing units to levels we haven't seen before. And that's pretty much all I can ask for and hope for. If we see a situation where every civ has 2 or 3 unique units, and then you have the unique techs that are like very interesting and whatnot, it could just end up being a situation where we have just every civ feels so different. And I don't think that's the spirit of AV2. So that's kind of like, I'm a bit concerned about that. But I'm with you on that one.
Mm-hmm. I saw like news articles that were, sort of celebrating that their civs were included. I think one was in, I don't know if it was Brazil or Argentina, I don't remember. There's like a news outlet. Age of Empires is finally going to include our civilization or whatever. People celebrating like their civs are now included in the game. I think that's great. I'm not sure if it's Brazilian or Argentina or whatever, but these countries have massive player bases, which I think, and just to make it clear, the Mapuche, I believe, lived in what's like today Chile and Argentina. The Muisca was like in Colombia, and the Tupi in Brazil. I think it was a Brazilian outlet that I saw. But there are massive player bases in a lot of these countries, Argentina specifically. I believe, wasn't it like, there's like a Millet, or like it's like a spokesperson. I remember seeing this back and forth on Twitter. Wasn't like one guy who also played and wanted to play against Nacho or whatever? Did you remember what I'm talking about?
He was, the name's not coming off the top of my head, but yeah, he was, I think, the president's spokesperson, and he was, I think, Adorni or something like that.
Adorni, yeah. That's what it was.
And he challenged some other politician to a game of Age of Empires. It was actually quite fun. I don't really get involved in Argentina politics too much, but it was fun that Age of Empires 2 was being mentioned so much, and I was like interested in that being pushed. But at the end of the day, they're politicians, and it was like all talk. It's not like he wants to jump in and play. He's just kind of just talking,
Classic.
Talking about it. But yeah, no. To your point about the regional or like the civs bringing about a reaction from like the modern day regions. I love that. Like we saw when
Me too.
When the Three Kingdoms DLC came out, it was like spiking in Taiwan. Like the sales on Age of Empires 2,
Yes.
the viewership was crazy.
Yep.
Streamers came out to play it. And I think we're going to see something similar for South America this time around, especially for like Argentina. I can say for a fact, things go viral incredibly fast in Argentina. People love their country, they love their culture, and they love to see their culture being celebrated or recognized. And so if anything remotely Argentinian or even South American comes out, I think that people in Argentina and in the neighboring countries will celebrate that and will potentially buy the game because of that, or at least buy the DLC. And there's a lot of players in South America that play Age of Empires 2 or have played it because growing up, that was like the number one game. It came in cereal boxes. It came everywhere. Yep. That was like the game that everybody played. Like there's a reason why I get recognized on the streets of Argentina like literally once a month, and I barely go out. So like, there's a lot of people that know Age of Empires 2. They really love it. So yeah, I think it's really good for the game to kind of I think it's about time that they chose South America because I think we got a big community down here, but I think it's always really good for the game to get like the different regions involved through DLCs and whatnot.
Absolutely agreed. Now, all this information came in like a post from World's Edge where they were like, praising the year 2025 and looking ahead at 2026. There was no mention of another Chronicles chapter, which we've speculated anyway that the last one that released was going to be the very last one. We don't know if that's still to come or not, but I think it's worth mentioning. All right, Hera, so before we go, I'd like us to quickly mention all the things that we can look forward to in early 2026. First, we have the Red Bull Ladder Grind, which will be happening between the 2nd and 18th of January, so just in a few days. Reminder that whoever finishes in the top 4 of the ladder will be directly qualified to the main event. And you told me you're potentially expecting a bunch of mirrors. Is that still the case? You think it's going to be right from the beginning, a bunch of mirrors, or only like at the end or something?
Yeah, probably closer to the end, but I think there's some talk that they might actually get us some system where like there's some bans and like you can't go mirror. So like there's still potentially like something like that could happen. I'm not actually sure.
Like a drafting system, something? That would be amazing.
Yeah. But again, I don't know. I'm not sure. But either way, it's going to start January 2nd. I'm really excited for that. Regardless if there's mirrors or not, I think it's so good for the game to just have, a ladder qualifier and have like so many viewers watching live, so many players active on it. I think that's really cool. So I really look forward to that. I'm going to be streaming the entire thing, and I encourage others to stream it as well, so the viewers can get involved and whatnot. But either way, I'm really excited for it, and I love that we have it.
Mm-hmm. Me too. I'm looking very much forward to it. Then on January 26th, the Titans League Platinum Division kicks off, and like in previous years, this will be a pretty extended tournament with the finals taking place March 22nd. The map pool for the tournament has been announced. Any quick thoughts? Have you seen the map pool? A lot of diversity.
I have not looked into TTL at all because I'm focused on Red Bull qualifiers first. It's going to be Red Bull qualifier, then TTL, then Red Bull. That's like how it works in my head.
Yeah, that's a lot of time for that. So after TTL 5, on April 1st, we'll have the Red Bull main event. And Hera, much to my amazement, apparently we've actually sold out the freaking Royal Albert Hall in a
Crazy.
matter of days, no less, like 2 or 3 days or whatever. I'm pretty sure it has like a capacity for 5,000 seats, and I imagine they didn't restrict the capacity in any way. So I think we're really gonna have like over 5,000 people watching high-level Age of Empires 2 in April. How crazy
surreal.
is that?
I didn't think that they'd be able to sell it out that fast. I thought it was gonna be like a month-long process. You know, they might ask streamers to start shouting it out or something. But bro, it just shows. It just shows like if you just do something really good, like Red Bull, you put on a good event. Like the word of mouth just spreads. Like everybody wants to be part of Red Bull, and for good reason. I always encourage people to be a part of it because they put on incredible events. Like truly, we're so blessed to have them in the scene. But I'm shocked that they got the 5,000 seats in such a short amount of time. That's incredible. I'm so excited for that. I hope I qualify, but I'm so excited. Either way, I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm shocked that they sold it out, and even more shocked that it was only 2 days or whatever. Crazy. Was not expecting it, but incredibly happy.
The ticket prices were very fair, I think, for what it was. Like I was expecting in the hundreds, for whatever reason. I don't know, London's expensive, but it was in the like tens. It was like 50 or 60, and then like 80 for the finals or something like that, which I thought was incredibly fair on their end.
Reasonable for sure.
Yeah.
Probably plays a big role too, for sure. Good idea. So after that, there will be qualifiers for the Brazil LAN event. People tend to forget about that, which will take place in São Paulo in July, if I'm not mistaken. And then another Memb tournament, which we still have no information about. You think he does a KotD 7, or was it going to be a Warlords 5, or I forget if it's 5 or 4 or 6 or whatever.
I think it's almost guaranteed to be a Warlords, but it's not going to be KotD. That would be crazy. Just run it back. So I think it's probably a Warlords. It could be a team game event. You never know, or something new. But I think probably Warlords. It's a successful tournament. No reason to drop it. So I think people would be happy with that. But I'm excited for the Brazil line. I think Onimaru's been doing big things for the scene. And I've heard that the hospitality that they had for the players was incredible, and like the boot camps and whatnot. So I think that they definitely put on a good show and treat players and fans pretty well, which is good.
Okay, listen, Hera, really appreciate you taking the time to be here with me. Thank you so much for doing this again. I wish you, your family, and everybody a fantastic start to 2026. And you guys, again, if you enjoyed the podcast, make sure to stick around for next year. Make sure to look forward to more episodes, and tell your friends about it. Let people know that we're out here doing good content. Hera, once more, thank you so much for taking the time, and see you next year.
Thank you. Like the video, guys, and I'll see you guys around.